Hello everyone. It was suggested to me that I do a color page. I've worked a dot to dot page, but someone wanted to see a color page. If you're interested in the adult color books, I like to use colored pencils, and I found the best ones are Prismacolor. They're more expensive than Crayola or other brands, but the lead is a lot softer and easier to blend with if you want to do some shading and blending. And I'm not an expert or a professional, so I have this Flowers, Gardens, and Botanicals, and it has beautiful pictures in it. Some of them are very simple, some of them have a lot of detail, and some of them have a lot of intricate work. I thought I would pick one that was not so intricate or detailed, because when you get to working on the detailed pictures, it can take a lot of time, and I usually work on it for a few days, not all day, every day, but maybe an hour one day, and just whenever I have free time. There is always music in the trees, but your heart must be quiet to hear it, by Minnie Almonier. Let's start with this one. I'm gonna do the inside, kind of a yellowish, maybe. So I will pick out the colors that I want to use for the inside. And when you're doing the coloring, you want to take your lightest shade of color and put it down first. And do it lightly. Don't push your lid down. It doesn't matter about detail on the first layer. I'm gonna go ahead and color this one too. I'm going to go ahead and get all the base layer down. I'm going to color the flower pink. So I think I'll use these colors for the flower and for the stem. I will use these colors or for the leaf. And for the stem, I'll use these colors. So I'm going to lay down a light layer on all of these petals. Like I said, for the first layer, it doesn't matter about detail, just try not to get out of the lines. And I usually color in a circular pattern when I'm laying down the first layer. It's a very light pink, so I don't know if it's going to show up too much on camera. And like I said before, I'm not an expert. I'm sure there are plenty of people that have channels on YouTube that could give you way better instructions on coloring and shading with colored pencils, and they're probably way better experts than I am. This is just a fun hobby for me. My husband works a lot, and we live in a town away from all of my friends and relatives. So I have a lot more time than normal on my hands, and this just calms me and gives me something to do. I usually listen to jazz music while I'm coloring. I like vocal jazz, like Diana Krall or Jamie Cullum or Michael Bublé. They're all good artists that their singing relaxes me. Kind of a musical ASMR, if you will. Okay, I think I have the flower. Let's get the leaf. Put it where you can see it. This color is definitely easier to see than the pink is. And you don't have to add shading or anything to your coloring. I just like to do it myself. It just seems to give a little more detail. I don't know if I want to use this color. I guess it'll be alright. It's called pumpkin orange, but it doesn't really look that orange. We'll try it. I'll just put a light. Looks more brownish to me. Okay, now for the inside of the flower, I'm gonna go with that was the shade that I started with. I'm gonna go with the little darker shade of yellow and just kind of come up from the bottom and under here where there would be some shade. I'm gonna color this whole inside. We'll leave that alone for now. Now I'm gonna go with the next shade. And do the same thing. Just kind of come up from the bottom, a little darker on the bottom. And just kind of drag it up. I'm just gonna add a layer of this on the top one too. Now I'm going to take the darkest color and just kind of lightly trying to get lighter as I go up. Do the same thing, darker on the bottom and then the crease where there would be shadow. Just kind of drag it up. Try to keep the lines in the same shape that the flower. I'll go a little darker on here. Would be now this is gonna have some shadow under it. So I'm very lightly just going around the outline of that. And I imagine this would be darker inside of this pod. I'll probably even go darker in there. Now, with my original color, I'm going to come back over this. And unlike the first time when I did it lightly, this time I'm going to press my pencil a little harder. That way I'll be blending the colors and kind of dragging them and smearing them together a little bit. I think for this upper part, I'm going to add a different color. And I kind of want a more orange hue on that, so go back with the original color. Now because that made the center look almost the same color, I'm going to go in there with a darker brown. And it still isn't as dark as I want it, so I think I'm lightly gonna go with a little black. Very lightly. Now let me go back with the oranger color to blend it together. That's okay, I guess. Alright, now for the flower. I'm going to start with very light where I think there would be some darker shade. Pull the shade out, kind of just stretch it a little bit. when you're coloring, it's easy to get lost in your own thoughts. That's what just happened to me. You forget you're filming, or forget your worries, or it's just very relaxing. They say it's really good for children or adults that are hyperactive or have attention problems. Or for autistic kids, because it helps you focus on one thing where there's not really any consequence to if you mess up, or you're not going to be graded. You can use your imagination and the colors that suit you. The colors don't always have to fit. So it's just very good therapy for many different reasons. For me, it helps my hands because I have nerve damage in my hands, arms, and legs. That's why I can't. See here how I start dark and try to get lighter as I go up. Anyway, back to my thought. So I can't do massage therapy anymore. So this coloring helps keep my hands active and occupied. There's some days that are bad that I can't really hold a pencil, but it's very good therapy. And all colorings are different. There's no right or wrong. You play with it. And you usually end up with something that you're happy about, or sometimes you surprise yourself. That's also why I like working with colored pencils. They're a lot more forgiving than markers are. You cannot undo a mistake with a marker. And like I said before, you don't have to do shading, you can just color it. I just like to do it because it adds dimension to the flower or whatever you're working on. Gives it depth. And with flowers, they're easier to work with because even in real life, every petal is not going to be the same. So if you want to try shading, I would suggest getting a flower book. Because every flower is imperfect in its perfection. I heard somebody say that one time, I don't remember who, but it's true. We're almost through with the pink. This is why I chose a more simple design, because I didn't want the video to run into an hour, and I knew that I personally wouldn't have time to complete a more detailed picture. Okay, now that the pink is done, I'm going to take purple and add a little more depth. It won't be as detailed as the pink, just to add a little splash, a hint of another color coming through. I don't know if you can see that. Like on the bottom flowers, it just adds a little more shading. You just kind of play with the shading. And as always, take your original base color and go back over. And I'm using a heavier pressure the second time with this. It just kind of reinforces the original color you were going with. And it picks up the highlights. flower. Now, the leaf is basically the same thing. We laid down our base color. I'm going with a little bit darker color just to add some depth and shading. Try to just fade from that dark back into the light. And from this one I want to fade this way from the dark, more lighter towards the center. These under here will be a little darker. Now, take the darker green and just kind of reinforce the shading. I'm going to take the original, come back over it. And the same thing with the stem. I'm going to come down the dark. Oh. The lid's broken. I have to be careful. I want to come down from the right side, darker than the left side. Come out with a little bit darker brown. And you can add as many shades as you want. I just usually go with 3 to start. And then if I decide later to play with it some more, I can add different shades or colors. And back with the original color. Always with a little more pressure. Just to pull those three colors together. And there is our flower. It's not perfect, but it's presentable. And I usually like to somewhere just sign and date so that I know when I did it, because this book could take months or years to finish. Pick you up a book and some colors. You can start with crayons, Crayola brand pencils, and they're decent. Thank y'all. Y'all have a nice day.